Welcome to the Dr Detective, a PhD true crime podcast series where we bring you critical assessment based on experience. We like to cover various episodes, and I'm going to bring you episode 16 today. This is going to engage the zombie synthetic opioids. Very serious subject matter, very serious concern as far as bringing awareness. Right. Again, some of the stories you just can't make up. We're going to talk about that and what it entails, some of the serious factors to consider, some things you may want to consider just if you see the signs of what this looks like. Right. I hear zombie drugs. I'm like, what is a zombie drug? We know what zombies are, right? Based upon the movies. But again, can't make these stories up. This is brought to you by the podcast in association with the True Crime Talk channel with STS Nation. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Audible. Let's get into the story. So this came to my attention because of this flight attendant that was stopped and detained. This is 21-year-old Charlotte May Lee of South London, England. She was taken into custody earlier last month after being stopped in the airport in Colombo, Bandaranaike Airport in Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka, after authorities found 101 pounds of the dangerous new synthetic drug they call Kush. Right, from time to time, you're going to hear various street terms and language of various opioids, substances, and so forth. So again, Kush is not new, but we're going to talk about that moving forward. So this ex-flight attendant faces about 25 years for smuggling 100 pounds of what they're saying is synthetic opioid Kush, which is possibly made of human bones as an additive mixture. So things are getting serious. They've been serious. But she allegedly smuggled this in a suitcase. And as I said, this is called Kush in West Africa, a new synthetic cannabinoid that originates out of that region. 21-year-old British woman, Charlotte May, was arrested. And again, this is a street value worth about 1.2 million, whether it's pounds or dollars equivalent. That's just in her suitcases. How often are flight attendants checked? Not to give them a bad name, but just for consideration. Are they checked often or should they be? Good question. As I mentioned, Kush is not new. This has been around for many, many, many years. This is a reemergence out of West Africa. A report from NPR says this version of Kush first appeared about 7 years ago in Sierra Leone and is described as routinely a drug cut with various additives such as acetone, tramadol, which is an opioid, formalin, an opioid, chemical used to preserve bodies, and sometimes, I guess, where the human bone component is introduced as well. But this is potent, easily accessible, and dangerously unpredictable. As I said, this Sierra Leone version of Kush is a crisis there, right? It appeared on the scene about 4 years ago, and it is very accessible to the youth there. So they're showing a rise in the use of this Kush synthetic opioid from 2023 up 4,000% since 2020, just in a short period of time. So again, it's ravaging the youth overseas, internationally. And I know the question you're asking, okay, so why are we covering this? Why are we talking about this? Guess what? It is here in the US. So again, compassion, concern, right? If we see a crisis in one part of the world, it's usually not long before it hits home or comes to our front doorstep or our backyard, right? So again, they're saying this Kush zombie drug essentially is derived from human bones. There was a fake report that people were digging up cemeteries and graves. That is not true. Again, we always have to do additional research, and this is, of course, speculation, but just trying to bring some awareness and some attention to what is going on. When I said it hits our front doorsteps, or it could potentially do that, it's already here in the US. So people talk about zombie apocalypse. If you see someone standing hunched over like this, just like, incapacitated almost, but almost zombie like, in a state of zombie like, and potentially with their rotting flesh or skin that appears to be in a certain condition. We'll talk about that too, because the drug has various side effects where it's a flesh eating type of reaction or potential reaction to what can happen. But if you see someone standing over, as I said, it's already here in the US. This is not fake. This is not an AI picture. This is actually happening in some of the larger cities. We're going to talk about the 9 states this has already been discovered in, and some of the other derivatives of that drug, not just Kush, but some of the other zombie drugs that have been labeled. Some of this is pharmaceutical. A lot of this is from veterinarian or veterinary use, just like fentanyl and some of the others, right? So again, it's not always that the drug is bad potentially, but more so how people are abusing the drugs and the usage of that. Is it taking over the US? It is definitely a menace here because it's here. It's been reported and found on the US Mexico border. Some more individuals incapacitated or apparently under the influence of some type of zombie drug, essentially, right? They look the same, similar behaviors, similar postures, right? In nature, just kind of stuck or standing apparently zombie like, or just kind of leaned over. It's also been found in Philadelphia, here in the US. Again, if you see the comparisons, you can see the similarities between individuals' behavior, postures, and so forth, and sometimes even the condition of the skin and what have you. Philadelphia has been found in Los Angeles also. So, is it taking over these alleged zombie drugs? Not necessarily about taking over, but if we're aware of it, we can maybe see something, say something, report the signs, or be careful if you're not exactly sure what you're getting. Again, for those of you that may be under the influence or curious about usage, again, we can only pray for um, alternatives or good outcomes or better care. Maybe if you're in need of help, I'm going to share some hotlines and support lines for you to consider or for you to contact, right? As always, we're on the positive side of things, trying to bring awareness and bring attention to what is going on. But look at the posture here. Do they appear like zombie like essentially? It looks more prominent when you see people in the capacity of a large crowd and everyone's kind of staring, like this young man here, just kind of slumped over the same posture. So, why is it called the zombie drug or zombie drugs? The term zombie drug is used to describe certain illicit drugs due to the severe and disturbing effects they can have on the users, causing them to appear like a zombie. Right. So, if you see someone again, this resembles that kind of behavior, that kind of image in terms of maybe they're disconnected from reality, just kind of stuck, maybe a vacant or glazed over expression, significantly impaired motor skills and posture, right? Often, sometimes a tendency towards being aggressive or unpredictable in their behavior. Could be under the influence, could be a combination of mental health and or under the influence, which impacts your culpability in your behaviors, right? K2 or Kush, as we mentioned, K2 is synthetic, but it is not marijuana. It's a dangerous mix of chemicals that can cause severe anxiety, heart attack, passing out, or even death upon usage. 0% marijuana in K2, but it's 100% dangerous. Some varieties of Kush also. February 2025, Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime conducted testing of the most common varieties of Kush available in Sierra Leone and other West African countries, found that it contained either what's called nitazines and or synthetic cannabinoids. Nitazines or synthetic cannabinoids, right? What are nitazines? I was thinking the same thing, right? When reading this and upon researching it. Nitazines are potent and often deadly synthetic opioids that have spread rapidly across global retail drug markets, including European countries, since 2022. Reports read that Essentially, these are the percentages of deaths that have taken place attributed to these nitazines. This is the thing that really floored me. Again, floored me. I'm going to pause before I even read it. One of the nitazines detected in this kush is 25 times more potent than fentanyl. Fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, right? And more times potent than heroin. Now we have additional opioids, synthetic or not, in the field, in usage, in the um, essentially abuse category, right? One of those nitazines detected in this kush, 25 times more potent than fentanyl. Fentanyl is a huge problem. We know this. We're going to have a separate episode talking about the fake pills that are being pressed, the additives to marijuana. Someone adds fentanyl to marijuana, and the fake pills that are pressed sometimes, like they may say they're selling oxys or oxycodone or something for pain relief, when in fact it could be a fraudulent pill that is laced with fentanyl or one of these other substances. So be careful, please. Please. So when we talk about synthetic opioids, we're essentially talking about these various types of drugs that can be natural, can be semi-synthetic, or just synthetic. To put it in contrast and comparison, we talk about natural opioids, we're talking about heroin, morphine, and codeine. Um, Typically use morphine and codeine for medicinal purposes. Heroin's more along the lines of abuse or being used as an abusive drug in nature. But this is the derivatives from where it comes from. It comes from nature. Semi-synthetic, we're talking pharmaceutical as well. Oxycodone, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, oxymorphone. Right. So again, we're talking about that. And don't quote me on the pronunciations. I am not a medical doctor. But we're just trying to bring awareness again. So write down the terms. If anyone's in the chat, you can actually update that or send a shout out, right? Again, this is all about a collective collaborative with my crime scholars. You guys are my crime scholars, by the way. And let's talk about, back to seriousness, synthetic opioids made entirely in a lab environment. So let's back up for a moment. Natural opioids such as the heroin, morphine, codeine derived from the poppy seeds, essentially. Semi-synthetic, synthesized from naturally occurring opium products and created and then made entirely in a lab. Separate from the nature, separate from the plants, we have the drugs made in a lab, 100%. Methadone, tramadol, and then there's the fentanyl. Chemically made, chemically introduced, and unfortunately widely abused. So let's look at some of the other opioids, essentially from the strongest to the weakest. Essentially, what are we talking about here? You see the strongest being fentanyl, that is slowly being replaced with these new nitazines and the new other drugs we're going to talk about, xylazine and so forth, which is called trank on the streets. We'll get to that shortly. But just look at the levels here and the range of danger or strength from strongest to weakest. Fentanyl being at the top, codeine being at the bottom, which is kind of like cough syrup. Of course, people abuse that too. Too much of anything is harmful. Too much of anything can kill you, right? Or unalive you, essentially. But just look at the range and the various components, various drugs, essentially. They're saying the 6 most addictive opiates are heroin, fentanyl, morphine, Vicodin, oxycodone, methadone, which also can be used to treat um, addicts and so forth, right? So again, just looking at the range of some of the stats included, Schedule 1, which is heroin. This report, as of 2016, 15,400 people died of heroin overdose. 2016. Fentanyl, 50,000 times stronger than heroin, 100 times stronger than morphine. Schedule 2 drug, right? This more so applies for law enforcement. How we categorize the drugs, well, how the pharmaceutical and um, government agencies categorize these. This determines the kind of trouble, essentially, or the kind of penalties that can happen, the kind of criminal charges that can take place based upon the scheduling of the drugs, based upon their seriousness, potency, and so forth. Schedule 2, morphine. Morphine carries a high risk of physical dependence. Again, many soldiers in past wars use morphine again as a pain reliever, um, just to kind of numb the impact or the trauma they endured during war. Again, thank you all for your service. Schedule 2, Vicodin, again, painkiller, most involved in U.S. overdose deaths. So again, even the actual Vicodin's dangerous. Now imagine these fake pills that are being sold and pressed with someone lacing them with fentanyl, right? So the pill presses, machines, and so forth, easy to obtain online. Again, if anyone's buying any kind of medication, even just for basic pain relief, go to your physicians, go to your doctors, right? You have to really be careful what you buy from someone online, even if you say you know them, because you don't know where they got it from, or they may not know where it came from. Again, additional schedules, oxycodones and so forth, and methadone. Again, any drug can be abused, even aspirins or things of that nature. That's why everything's monitored. So fentanyl, we talk about fentanyl, a legally produced synthetic opioid, 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. In 2022, there were 73,000 people that died from synthetic opioids, most of which fentanyl. In the EU, 137 deaths associated in 2021. Fentanyl again strikes, and I'm sure these numbers have been increased, or they are increasing. I believe the president just enacted the HALT Act to combat fentanyl use or the abuses of that. Now, we do know many of these drugs can be used and are created and or managed by the pharmaceutical industry. Again, we're not attacking any major corporations. We're just trying to bring awareness to what's out there, what to look for, and the changes in the drug culture that we're seeing. Back to the K2 and or what's called spice. So many names for these on the street, right? It's still a synthetic cannabinoid and it's unpredictable. Again, health effects, it affects your brain, your heart, your stomach, your entire body. It just depends. Every individual is different. And we don't know what's being combined in the creation of some of these. We don't know what's being added or taken away from. So again, if you're not sure what you're receiving, um, use with caution. We're not endorsing any kind of use at all. But if you're going to, if you need medication, go to your physician, please. Again, stand clear of these, um, definitely the illegal things, but these uh, street drugs, unknown substances, or just friends and family that may share this with you. You have to really be even cognizant of these gummies and things of that effect. So, again, um, if you're not sure or you just don't know, stay away from it. These drugs can act in many different capacities of your body, affects your brain cell receptors, including those that bind to THC found in marijuana. Again, they produce unpredictable side effects, and that in itself is dangerous. When we talk about nitazines, this is what's being found in that Kush or the new variation of Kush that's been labeled. Nitazines, we talked about that, a highly potent synthetic opioid detected in 2025 in Brisbane. This one example here, um, this was detected and found, it looks like a little green bear-shaped pressed pill. So this was a pill that was pressed into that shape of a teddy bear. That's probably part of their marketing. Essentially, that's what it looks like to me. Again, can be tested. There are test strips that can be obtained if you're not sure what you're getting. Again, if you're not sure what you find for law enforcement and investigators, you can order test strips, send that off to the lab to be tested, send that off for verification of what someone's selling, someone is trafficking or distributing. Again, test and verify 100%. This is an alert. As I said, one of the nitazines detected in this kush is 25 times more potent than fentanyl. So what does that tell you? Fentanyl is already an epidemic. It's already a huge problem. Now we have to contend with nitazines and 25% more potency. That's 25% more deadly, is what that says to me. So again, it's not just in West Africa or Sierra Leone. It is here in the States. We talk about the zombie drugs or menaces as a menace to take over the U.S. or whether it's going to impact us. It's already impacting us. Again, on the streets, they may call it trank or various other names for these zombie drugs because this is what it does to people. This is what it makes people behave like. This is what some of the signs you may see. If you see someone like this, I would call and get them some help or call and tell the authorities. You may want to check this person out. You can call anonymously, right? Just say, hey, this is a street or this person's heading that way, or they're just kind of standing there. We don't know what's going on. Get them some help ASAP as soon as possible, please. Then there's xylazine. Xylazine, also called trank on the streets. They're saying it's a new zombie drug. Like we need another zombie drug, right? We have enough problems already with the fentanyl and everything else. And now there's this new epidemic, essentially. So what is xylazine? Again, as I said, it's called trank because it's actually a tranquilizer used for veterinary medicine. Again, it's a veterinary sedative found mixed with illicit drugs and counterfeit pills, not obtained at a pharmacy. Keywords, not obtained at a pharmacy. Again, when it's mixed or when it's pressed as counterfeit or fake pills, this is illegal, right? Xylazine increases the risk of skin wounds, overdose, and or death. So this is where we get those kind of flesh-eating drugs or opioids that will literally rot the skin, and it shows signs of skin wounds, right? So again, this is like pretty sick, pretty bad stuff here, right? That's why they call it the zombie drug or the new zombie drug. It's a mixture with fentanyl and xylazine, known for the terrifying effects of what it does to people. First identified in the 2000s in Puerto Rico, now spreading across major cities globally, right? So we know the difference between fentanyl versus xylazine, both synthetic opioids, but fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, 100 times stronger, right, than morphine, high risk of fatal overdose. Xylazine's veterinary tranquilizer causes extreme sedation, confusion, and skin wounds or skin sores, essentially. Now, people are mixing the two. So you're mixing the two, you're getting trank or trank dope, as they call it, right? So you're getting the 100 times stronger effect than morphine, 50 times stronger, right, than heroin. And now you're getting this combined with the tranquilizing effect and extreme sedation. So again, pretty nasty stuff. We're not going to show any pictures of the rotting skin, but they are out there if you choose to Google them, and not good at all. Terrifying almost. This causes overdose and death. That doesn't sound like a side effect that sounds appealing. So xylazine is referred to as trank on the streets. It's a non-opioid veterinary anesthesia. So it's anesthesia or sedation, right? Used for purpose of sedating large animals. Not approved for human consumption by the FDA. Repeat, this is not approved for human consumption by the FDA. Been linked to an increased number of overdose deaths throughout the U.S. We're going to see a map shortly because there are 9 states this has been identified in. And this is just as of my research over the past couple of weeks. Of course, that can easily change or that can easily be identified in the underground world of distribution that we don't always know about. Okay, we don't know until we catch someone or someone tells us what they're on, or we find the substance and it's tested. Then we can determine what's out there, what's being used. So now people are combining this with other opioids, other depressants, alcohol, benzos, and so forth. Again, all contributing to a potential fatal overdose or more overdoses. Trank was found in over 90% of the dope tested in the samples collected in Philadelphia in 2021. Trank was found in 90%, over 90%. And this is just the combination or mixture. That's in Philadelphia, not in Sierra Leone, not in West Africa, right here in the US. So again, we have some work to do. We have to pay attention. This is way more than just situational awareness. This is a problem. 90%, over 90% tested in Philadelphia. So this is a public safety alert. The DA reports widespread threats of fentanyl mixed with xylazine or trank. This is from the DEA. They're reporting this. This is making xylazine the deadliest drug that our country has ever faced. Fentanyl, even deadlier. Now you combine the both of these, what do you get? You get an epidemic. You get a crisis, essentially. We have to pay attention. We have to do better at reporting. We can't turn our heads. We can't afford to. I know. I lost 2 relatives to drug use, brother and a sister. And one had marijuana laced with fentanyl and some other substances. The other, I'm not quite sure. I know it was obviously unfortunate, whatever was consumed. And then tragically, she was also struck by a vehicle. Again, I say that because I know how it feels to lose loved ones to this. It's not good. And we have to do everything we can. So again, if I have to make 100 stories about the usage over and over again, that's what I'll do, right? Because I want you to try to save someone, try to help somebody. Again, compassion, right? You don't have to like me. Just spread the knowledge, right? Spread the knowledge, spread the love, as I always say, right? It is real in the field. So again, these are mixtures. We're talking about people now mixing the worst of the worst drugs out there, the worst of the worst. So because xylazine is not an opioid, Narcan doesn't reverse the side effects, right? And what is Narcan? Essentially, Narcan is being used to when someone overdoses. You can have a Narcan on standby or on hand, kind of inject that into the nose, bring that person back. Now, think about this mixture with the nitazines and or xylazine drugs mixed with the fentanyl. May or may not work. Narcan may or may not work. That is just terrible. You still have to try if you have that available. But since it's not an opioid, it's not going to reverse the side effects. It's a sedation, it's a tranquilizer. So again, we have to do our better work, our better job at, again, creating awareness, sharing and spreading awareness. So I say share the stories, right? It's not about the likes, not just about the numbers. It's about the awareness. And I'll say that once, I'll say it again, I'll say it 10 times. It's about the awareness. Look at this map. There's something called midetomine, I'm going to call it. Midetamine. I'm going to say it both ways. I can't be wrong. It's one of those two, right? I am not a medical doctor. So again, disclaimer, this is for awareness, educational purposes, but this is also called a new zombie drug. Look at the states, the 9 states that this new so-called zombie drug is in. And now this is even another, like, spoiler alert, another keynote, right? So we have the fentanyl, right? 50 times more potent than heroin, 100 times more potent than morphine. Then we have xylazine, 25% more potent than fentanyl. Now we have adetamine, 100 times more potent than xylazine. So what are we talking about here, people? We're just, addiction is addiction. I'm not saying I understand addiction. I'm not saying I have no compassion for it. I do have compassion for it. But again, some people are chasing that high or the next high or the higher feelings, the higher euphorias. Again, these are epidemics now. And this is just showing 9 states. 9 states. I say countries before, maybe. 9 states that this has been reported in. And guess what? Ohio's on the map. My state's there: Pennsylvania, Illinois, Missouri, Colorado, California, Florida, North Carolina. Ohio's there, so my state's there. If you didn't know, I'm based out of Akron, Ohio. These 9 states reported usage, reported this drug. So what is this medetamine, right? Potato, right? Tomato. Okay, anyway. So, all seriousness, medetamine, veterinary anesthetic, right? For veterinary use only, legal status, side effects, sedation, hallucinations, respiratory depression, and even death. This is also called a zombie drug, or trank, for tranquilizer. Common combinations: heroin, opioids, and synthetic opioids. But again, overdose likely very high potential for overdose. I'd stay away from that. Leave it to the animals. You leave it to the veterinarians to use that. Leave it to the professionals to administer that to the proper categories of usage, such as sedation for larger animals, sedation for them only, not for human consumption, not to try it out, not to test it, because I'm sure with the potency of these opioids, synthetic or not, you may not get a second chance. I only want the best for everyone. Let's talk about the reason we're here, especially. We're talking about wellness, right? Trying to build positive mental spaces, aim to eliminate illnesses and optimize personal well being. We're talking about prevention. We're talking about interventions and what's intended to reduce the risk of those kind of behaviors, encourage healthy decision making, and prevent substance misuse. And we're talking about recovery. Ultimately, is what we want for any of you and all of you. Anyone that's using that, it's frustrating when you have the power of law enforcement and you can't really do a lot to um, change the habits of loved ones or change, the landscape all at one time. But that's why we work on a case by case basis, right? That's why if you're selling the stuff, you're gonna be you'll be caught. It's gonna come back to you one way or another. If you're using this, please get help. This is all about recovery, which means long-term treatment, not a short solution, not an easy solution, I'm sure, by no means. Long-term treatment is the focus. We want to reduce relapse events and support individuals the best way we can to be more productive. And then promotion, which I want to call awareness, right? Creating and maintaining environments that support healthy behavior and minimizes or eliminates use altogether. That's what it's about. That is a focus. That is a goal, right? So if you know someone who's struggling with the use of any kind of substance abuse, but specifically synthetic cannabinoids, opioids use, pills, alcohol, whatever the case is, get them some help or seek help immediately. I'm going to put a hotline number here and I'll make this even larger so you can see it. Again, if you know someone that needs help, you see something, say something, even call anonymously. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy, but it'll be worth it. Some helplines here. Department of Behavioral Health Access Helpline. This is 24/7. Call 888-793-4357 or the Poison Helpline at 1-800-222-1222. Call these numbers. I'll leave these here for a few moments. So the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration National Helpline here, 1-800-662-4357. I'm going to leave this here for a moment and still just have a discussion or finish out this episode. Again, I'm not here to bore you. I'm not going to tell jokes. I'm not going to play around with this. This is serious business. And again, if you can help one person, you've done your job. If you can have compassion for someone, you've done your job. We got to take care of each other. Again, you don't have to like each other, but at least consider how this karma may come back, right? You don't want to have your little kids playing in the park and then get stuck by a needle. You don't want to have things of that nature happen, or they find some substance, or just things kind of come full circle with, all the other elements combined with what happens in this culture, in this world. People are desperate. People are under the influence. People may do anything to get access to these drugs, these opioids. So again, pay it forward. Pay it forward. Here's the helplines again. I'm going to put this up bigger. National Behavioral Health Access Helpline. Department of Behavioral Health Access Helpline, and the Poison Helpline, and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration National Helpline. Those are the numbers. Again, if you see, like I'm scrolling my uh, address for YouTube for the podcast across the bottom, subscribe, like, and share. Again, take care of one another. This is brought to you by the Dr. Detective, a PhD True Crime podcast. Again, like, share, subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Audible, and soon to come Apple Music and many other platforms. So again, I want to thank you and end on this note here. We're here to take care of each other. I always say spread love, right? Spread the knowledge, share the story, right? It just takes a second. It's just a click. Just one click can make all the difference, and be cordial. Get back to being cordial and just checking on people. We have to check on ourselves, check on our family, check on your loved ones. If for no other reason, do this for you, do this for your family, right? Do this for someone that you love and you care about. Do this for a stranger, right? And I want to say thank you again from the Dr. Detective, PhD, True Crime Podcast. Like, subscribe, share. Thank you.